Homemaking with a pre-toddler is really interesting because it's this balance between productivity, we've got a house to run, we've got food to make, there's usually a lot of errands to run, plus it is his childhood, and so there's a lot of play and fun and introduction of things that is all new to him that I want to be wonderful. And striking that balance is a constant figuring out every day. I can't say that I have it down pat, but I love working at it. And today I'm going to bring you into my world and show you a little bit of what that looks like. I'm a planner, and so in my head I am usually planning out my tasks for the day, things that I want to get done, usually over a week, and then I'll tackle little bits every day as I'm able. And I like to start our day off here at home. Usually this time before the first nap is spent sacredly here at home, playing, having breakfast, but making time for some one-on-one time that I can spend with him, looking into his eyes, laughing and playing together. Now this happens lots of times during the day, but specifically in the morning I find this is really beneficial because he's fresh and he's sharp. It's a way to sort of fill his tank with special time directly focused on him before we get into the day's tasks. I find that really helps. We are going out on a hike today with some friends, and so I am packing food and drinks and all kinds of things that we'll need for our trip, appropriate clothing. So I'm using this first nap to quickly get everything in order before we head out. Something I'm packing for myself to eat today is just a plain old sandwich from sourdough bread. I think it's helpful to talk about this because just seeing what somebody else is doing sometimes just sparks ideas in my brain, so hopefully this is helpful to you. I am not a big fan of peanut butter, and so I have been using this hazelnut butter instead. We also have cashew butter and almond butter that I got recently. I really enjoyed those substitutes instead of peanut butter, with a little bit of this honey that we got from my mom-in-law when they used to live here and farm with bees, that I still have a jar from her. And this is a really easy sandwich for me to take on the go for our trip today. More productive things I am squeezing in over this nap is watering my plants. I try to do this once a week, and sadly I forget still sometimes, but this seems like a really fitting day to quickly run through and give them all a little bit of water. I also like to, this time of year, give them a little bit of food. Now I would like to give them some kind of natural fertilizer that would help them bloom and give them the necessary nutrients for the springtime growth. But I actually bought these, I guess they're synthetic fertilizers or whatever, a little while ago, and I'd like to use them up before I buy anything else. It's still good, it's not ideal for the lifestyle that we are slowly transitioning into. A little bit at a time, I think, is good, and so I'm going to use up what I have here. We are in the spring season, and I have been much more mindful and attentive to the plants that are budding and growing. We're a little late in our spring here, so things are quite advanced or kind of on to the next phase. All the trees and plants are sort of on their own schedule, as God would have it. And so we're a little late catching the nettle here. This stinging nettle has to be picked with gloves. Definitely don't want to get it on your skin. But I would hate for this season to pass by without us picking any nettle. And so today I'm taking the opportunity to pick a little bit of nettle so that we can make some kind of nettle dish at home for us to enjoy tonight. Ideally, it'd be best to pick these nettle leaves earlier in the season. When the plant puts out its fresh first leaves, those are maybe more nutritious and tasty. However, this will still be good and delicious, and so I am picking some of these leaves, and then I'll take them home with me for our dish tonight. My plan is to make a green sauce for our pasta tonight, and I'm going to start by chopping up some greens. Here I have some celery that I'm chopping into thin slices, and then I'm going to get that searing in a pan, and beside that I'm going to start to cook these asparagus that we got from our neighbor farm friends. So sweet. I'm going to put the lid on and let that steam for a little bit while I prep the rest of the greens. We also got some fresh, now we also have some fresh radishes from them, and so I'm washing those up and I'm chopping them up to add in with this sauce because it's all going to be pureed in the end. So I've got some greens, radishes, and then my nettle that I'll add in a minute here. Now the asparagus is done, so I'm going to take that out and then add in the rest of my greens and let those cook together. Now I was gonna add a little bit of water, but I thought actually I'll add in a little bit of broth. That'll give us some extra nutrients in this green sauce. Once my greens are all wilted, I add that to my food processor, and now it's time to get the nettle out and get that cooked in a little bit of broth so that it can take off that stinging nettle and wilt just a little bit before I add it to the blender with the rest of the greens and puree that up. Now the pasta is ready, so I can pour off that water, and then I'm adding some cold water just to help the cooking process stop, because with these rice noodles they can cook soft way too quick. And then I add the sauce to my pasta, and it was a little bit too runny for my taste. I didn't have exact measurements here, so I'm just adding a little bit of arrowroot powder, kind of like cornstarch but a little healthier. This is actually coming from a root of a vegetable, so a lot more nutrients there. And the process to extract the arrowroot is quite intense. So this is actually something beneficial to add to our food, to use as a thickener. And then that was our meal for the evening with some asparagus and fried tuna. So yum. I'm not claiming to have this figured out in any way, and I'm constantly reassessing systems and methods, trying to find something that works better, and this will probably change in various seasons depending on what we're doing or how many children we have or whatever the case. But for right now, what I have found that really works is making a list of the things I like to get done every week that are sort of for myself, but also for the well-being of our house and my family. My current list is a video once a week. I also have a blog, mountainvalleyrefuge.com, where I post some recipes and stories, things we're doing in the garden. That has been a little bit neglected, but that's another thing I like to do once a week. I also have been learning to play piano, so I try to touch that at least once a week. Some kind of sewing, which I am learning and dabbling in, learning more and more about sewing techniques and how to actually fix things and make things. And then I also have some other responsibilities to upload videos for a pastor counselor, and a little bit of exercise is something that I just want to take a little bit more seriously. So these are 6 things every single week that I would like to do. And so what I have found works is, instead of trying to slot them into specific time periods, and they're usually over our son's nap time, because that's just when I can actually devote some proper time to these. What I have done is I write them on my planner every single week, and as I get one done, I'll check it off. And that leaves things very open-ended, so it's not super planned. It depends on the day and what I'm able to do, but I try to at least once a day do one of these things, and then over the course of a week to have touched all of those things at least once. Sometimes this stretches over multiple naps, so I started cutting on one nap, and now I am finishing the sewing on a different nap. Here are the dimensions for the 2 pieces that I kind of figured out with this basket. And then I spent some time and cut a whole load of them. We probably will use a lot of these potato bags. We have a large garden, and so I can pack it along a bed really easily. I just didn't want to devote any more garden space to potatoes. And so I spent one nap doing all the cutting, and then I started sewing a bag. So I started by sewing the circle first, which is kind of tricky, and you have to do a lot of adjustments as you go along. Just go slow and follow the circle. And I was so impressed that it actually came together with a little bit of extra fabric to spare on the inside. And so now all I have to do is sew up the middle there, and I'll have a bag. And I was able to do it before the nap time was over, which felt like a really big achievement. And so on another nap, I finished off sewing the center down. And then once I had that straight piece sewn up, I turned the bag inside out, and voila, a potato bag. Now it's not fancy, it doesn't have the handles or the pockets to pick out potatoes, but this is all we need. We just want potatoes to grow and a space to grow them vertically. Well, thank you for watching, and we hope you stick around and subscribe and tune in for the next video.